Что вам приходит в голову при упоминании Индии? Это, конечно, Болливуд, хорошее настроение, танцы и, конечно же, Индийский океан. Но после сегодняшнего выпуска я хочу, чтобы при упоминании Индии ваши ассоциации были с IndiaLive конференцией.
Скажи сейчас, вот социальные сети насколько развиты, нужно это вообще в общении? Врач с врачом или врач-пациент?
Ну, слушай, с пациентом я не знаю, у меня такого большого опыта нету, я не веду социальные сети для полечения пациентов, но общение с зарубежными коллегами – это очень важно и ценно, особенно в эпоху интернета и именно социальных сетей. Это очень доступно, просто и главное желание. Найти контакт человека кажется очень сложно, но если ты знаешь, кого тебе нужно найти, фамилию, имя человека, где он работает, даже просто его имя, то в интернете можно его спокойно найти. А потом, пользуясь различными социальными сетями, можно найти контакт его, где он...
то есть первичная цель, да, какой-то?
Да, нужно
для чего он тебе нужен?
Определенную задачу, ты занимаешься каким-то направлением, CTO, периферическими ТАВи, ты просто гуглишь экспертов этих иностранных и дальше уже находишь в сетях их контакты, пишешь им. Если у тебя есть возможность поделиться какими-то своими кейсами, в эти сети выкладываешь, и люди, в большинстве своих случаев, они отвечают, если ты можешь добавить их хэштег или профиль, или просто лично написать, вот у меня есть такой кейс, хотел бы поделиться, возможно, вы что-то посоветуете, и неожиданно для себя я обнаружил, что многие люди отвечают, и они очень спокойно ведут диалог, контактируют. Мы общаемся в своих сетях, но также люди общаются и в других сетях. И ты делишься своим опытом, тебе отвечают, указывают спокойно на то, где бы они что сделали по-другому, дают советы, и рано или поздно ты начинаешь прислушиваться к этим советам и понимаешь, что действительно люди делятся с тобой опытом спокойно, просто чтобы ты мог работать более качественно. Спустя год-два собирается небольшой пул людей, которые с тобой общаются, есть обратная связь, и они открыты к общению, и уже можно написать, что я бы хотел к тебе поехать на неделю, на 2, у меня есть возможность поработать с тобой, посмотреть, как ты работаешь, возможно ли это. И в большинстве своих случаев никто не отказывает. Имеются разные ограничения в клиниках, но все только за.
So I'm an interventional cardiologist, and I'd always wanted to do, ever since I got into med school, I'd always wanted to do cardiology. It was one of those things because in South Asia, India in particular, you have a lot of heart disease. So almost every family would have lost somebody due to heart disease. So once I was in there, I wanted to do cardiology.
Почему CTO? Почему хронические тотальные окклюзии? Как это заинтересовало?
So it was one of those things where I had a lot of good advice. Like, people told me to do EP. They said, like, do imaging. So I trained in the US, like, pretty much my entire, post-college kind of life. So I was at the Cleveland Clinic, and so when I was thinking about interventional cardiology, the one thing that at that time was one of the most coolest and the most complex thing was retrogrades, right? So there's something magical about the wire going in through one femoral artery and coming out through the other artery at that time. It was bifemoral always at that time. So there's just something really cool about that. And in general, in angioplasty, we talk about rotablation, we talk about left mains, graft interventions, but like at the very apex, you have CTOs. It's like, and then you of course see all these CTO experts, and I'm like, if you're a CTO expert, you have to be bloody good at everything, including all the stuff that we said on imaging. So it was one of those things, it's like, that's the peak. And if you can get there, it's awesome.
Какое развитие у хронических тотальных окклюзий? Какой следующий шаг?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I think there are lots of really good technology that's coming up. I think we were stalling for a while, right? And so we obviously have better wires, better microcatheters, etc. That's been really good. There also been a lot of interest in the dissection reentry antegrade in the last couple of years. We have now Recross, which has been around in a couple of countries, and now you have the new device from Bill Nicholson, the Triumph. So there's a lot of active area in dissection reentry antegrade. So I think eventually, hopefully, we come to a point where we should be able to almost reach the success of regular PCI. And that's where I think it's heading. I mean, of course, eventually far into the future, this entire thing of interventional cardiology and just, ballooning and stenting might just get antiquated, and we might just go with a combination of, sophisticated stuff that just goes away, or maybe nanobots and technology that are in the future. But in the foreseeable future, in the next 10 years, I think this is going to be a lot of incremental advances.
Как вы общаетесь с пациентом? Доносите ли вы информацию всю?
That's a brilliant question. It's something that I've always struggled with, right? So it really depends on the audience. It's like giving a talk. Know your audience. Like, there are some people, I still believe in informed consent. Let me start with that. People should know what they're signing up for. But, there are certain cultures. So I've practiced in a couple of countries, and now I'm in India for the most part. When they hear the word risk, that's all they hear. Yeah. They just stop talking after that. So you got to still, you inform them, but you also inform them in a way that they understand what you want them to understand. So I think that's very critical, because otherwise you're going to have a couple of naysayers saying, well, you're alive, why do you want to do anything? Why are you taking a risk? So I think it's about balance, so that they understand that the risk of not doing something sometimes outweighs the risk of doing something.
Все ли врачи должны учиться хроническим тотальным окклюзиям, обучаться этому?
No, I don't think everyone should. Just like structural, which a lot of people understand is very specialized, I think CTO PCI is it's in its own ecosystem, right? The whole ship CTO, has become a kind of a subspecialty of its own. So I think, it is important that people know enough so that they can refer patients when appropriate to certain people. So it's not everyone's going to be like super good in, winter sports and, hockey and tennis. You pick and choose what you want to do, and then you be very, very good at it. But overall, I think, people should have enough of an understanding, cardiologists, so that, at the right times they can refer to the appropriate interventional cardiologist.
Последний вопрос. Отношение к социальным сетям. Нужно ли обращаться с пациентами через социальные сети?
I think it's the future. Yeah. Today for people to
Social media at all?
Yeah, because people, it's really, if you think about it, right? Every country has its own version of either WhatsApp, WeChat, this, that, something, Line. increasingly, I mean, this is happening. It's like saying, do we need smartphones? I mean, we have crossed that, right? So now I think social media is here. The key is to be responsible about how we use it, make sure it's monitored, make sure that we have appropriate platforms where people can get reliable information. Because part of the challenge is that there's a lot of noise. There are a lot of it's some of the medical stuff. I think social media is important, but it's also important that it be regulated so that it's a little bit more appropriate.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for having me. Привет. Thanks.
A few, yes.
Which one?
I speak Hindi, Punjabi, Urdu, Bengali, French, English, and some Italian.
What about Russian?
But unfortunately, no Russian. Not yet, but soon.
Okay. Какие требования к операционной необходимо предъявлять в настоящее время?
The modern cath lab, I think, is best served by the best tools and technologies that we have at our disposal, combining to help us make good decisions. Right? This is where the use of artificial intelligence is really going to start to become important, where we take all of the data that we can get a hold of now, intervascular imaging, fluoroscopic data, contrast flow, patient data, clinical data, and funnel them all into data analysis algorithms to produce decision support, so that we as interventionalists and as vascular surgeons and as cardiac surgeons and what have you, make the best results that we can for our patients as soon as we have the information available.
Что самое важное в операционной?
I think today, tools have changed from 15 years ago when PCI was a little bit less fundamental to day-to-day practice and more developing. It was probably things like wires and stents, but I think now that we've started to understand so much more about the interplay between physiology and anatomy and the nature of what we're treating, I think there's no question it's intravascular imaging. Whether it's IVUS or it's OCT, these are now tools that not only help us prepare or understand the anatomy of the vessels that we're treating, but choose tailor-made tools to fix exactly the problems we're treating and then ensure that our results are as good as they can be. I don't see how you can do PCI well now without these types of tools at your disposal.
Откуда вы получаете информацию о новинках в индустрии?
So I'm fortunate in that we have industry partners who are invested in our education, who are often available near our cath labs. And from them, we can get pointed to various resources. But to be honest, the best impartial information about when to use what tool and how is obtained here, is at meetings like these and is at meetings like these, where you talk to your colleagues who do procedures as well. You read the literature and then you start trading questions and trying to share answers so that you both learn together and understand how better to use tools.
Как быстро развиться молодому врачу, молодому интервенционному специалисту? Шаги.
I think the most important ingredient for any young interventionalist who wants to excel is you've just got to want to be as good as you can be, constantly trying to be better. We have really good certified fellowships that build in the basics. But then once you pick your particular area of interest, whether it's peripheral arterial intervention or complex PCI or structural intervention, I think if you want to go from basic knowledge to as advanced as you can as quickly as possible, you pick up one of these dedicated fellowships, preferably in an area that has a history and track record of creating excellent trainees and excellent graduates, and you sign on and you work as hard as you can through that fellowship to create not only a knowledge base but connections that you can continue to rely on and continue to learn from when you go out to independent practice. And then finally, when you're out on your own, just try your best. Refuse to take second best as an answer, and you'll get there.
Может быть, есть какой-то секрет, потому что такой молодой специалист, а столько достиг уже.
You know, the truthful secret is sometimes it's just luck combined with hard work. I was in the right place. Luck and hard work. I was in the right place at the right time. I had an amazing opportunity that was put in front of me with some of the best teachers in the world, and I took advantage of it. I never stopped working through it. I worked as hard as I could to get everything out of every opportunity, and it's largely why I am where I am.
Я часто спрашиваю о будущем индустрии, а вы являетесь законодателем моды покрытых баллонов. Вы считаете за этим будущее?
I think that drug-coated balloons are the present and will become more and more the future of interventional cardiology, because the complexity of patients that we are facing day by day are showing us that on the very long term, drug-eluting stents are not a perfect tool. They are good, they are really good. We will go on using them, but if you give a look at the very long term data of some studies, with 10 years, you will always have some events every year in terms of TLF, target lesion failure. You will have between 2% and 3.5% of events every year with stents. What we are trying to reach with drug-coated balloons is the same amount of events for the first 18 months and then the flattening of the curve of the events. This is what we have seen in some studies like Piccoletto 2, and we want to see in larger studies.
В целом, вы думаете, будущее без металла?
I think the future will be with some metal, for sure, because still drug-coated balloons have to face the problem of acute recoil, or we can have some big dissection. So here you have to place metal. Yeah, but currently my perspective, I'm a sort of a pioneer in the drug-coated balloon. I use DCB in 70% of my cases, but I still use stents, only stents in 30%. So I think that stents will remain there, but DCB should treat the vast majority of the lesions.
Какая у вас операционная активность?
I work in several cath labs. I do a lot of proctorship, so it's around 400 PCIs that I do personally perform as a primary operator, and then others as a secondary operator. And as I said, I use more and more DCBs. For example, 2 years ago they were 50%, now they are 70%.
Социальные сети, работают ли они на поляризацию врача?
I think so. It is very important because there are several websites, for example, or other communities that help us in sharing immediately our experiences. I want to make this example. Yesterday, I got the final acceptance of the proof of one paper that I published on JAHA, okay? And so I immediately put the link of this paper on LinkedIn, and I received a lot of responses by our peers from all around the world. This was a paper on the single antiplatelet therapy after drug-coated balloons. So it is very important, this social community, for the most important advances in interventional cardiology.
Okay, I get it. Website, нужен ли он врачу?
No, I don't think so. I think that only some key opinion leaders should have a website where younger colleagues, fellows can go and look at their experiences. I don't think that everybody should have one.
У вас есть хобби?
Yeah, I have several hobbies. I like to go with a bicycle, road bicycle. I like to ski when it's possible, and I like to spend a lot of time with my family.
От чего удовольствие больше получаете? От хобби или от работы?
I enjoy from both of them. I am lucky that I can admit that I love my job, so I spend some time there, but I'm not totally devoted to the job. I don't think that to be an equilibrated person, you should spend too much time in work. So I spend the vast majority of my working day at job, but then I'm happy to spend also my time with the family. And I think that they are two different, but both of them are very important types of energy that I get from these two things.
Если бы вы не занимались коронарными интервенциями, какое направление бы выбрали?
If I wasn't an interventional cardiologist, well, I would have been probably an interventional cardiologist. Because, you know, this is not the type of specialization where you make more money as compared, at least in Europe, as compared to dermatologists, oculists, and so on, ophthalmologists. But I think that the results that you can get, the impact that you can have on your patient is so important.
А вы из медицинской семьи?
Well, yes, my grandpa was a surgeon. He was head of surgery close to my hometown. So I think that he gave me, even if he died a lot of years ago, 30 years ago, he gave me the route that I decided to do.
Удивительные места. Храмы в Индии — это что-то с чем-то, конечно. Что тут только не увидишь. Do patients need to know something more about the doctors? For example, what conferences they visit?
I think patients need to know the result of the procedures the doctors do, how many procedures they have done, what is the success rate, what is the complication rate, what is the mortality, what is the outcome. I believe this information should be publicly available.
Okay. What do you think about social media? Do doctors need to show the academic activity?
I'm not much of a fan of social media. The problem of social media is that they don't have a supervision. They are not reviewed. Everybody can write whatever he wants on social media and people take it as true. There is no double check about the quality and the trueness of what is shown. So that is the limitation of social media.
Okay. And last question about your work, about your presentation. What is the next step in interventional cardiology in near future? Maybe?
But as you know, I am very much in favor of limiting the foreign body material. So I like the concept of bioresorbable scaffold.
Yeah.
I like the concept of drug-coated balloons to limit the metal in the coronaries. Drug-eluting stents are a tremendous progress, but if we can limit the presence of metal in the coronaries, I believe we make an advancement. So I like the metal-free PCI approach.